All right, good afternoon. My name is Manish Goyal. I lead our AI analytics practice in IBM Consulting, and I'm so thankful to be in a room with real people and not staring at a WebEx or a Zoom session, which I've been doing for a year and a half. So thank you for being here. What I want to do over the next 20 minutes or so is to walk you all through our experience at IBM in really looking at an end-to-end framework in how IBM builds trustworthy AI, right, in all of our products and services, as well as what my team takes out to clients that we consult with. Now, why do I care about trustworthy AI? I've been really lucky over the last 10 years or so to be building AI products for 7, 8 years. I've led teams that have brought out cutting-edge machine learning, AI, solutions to market. Many of them have been phenomenally successful. Some of them haven't worked out as we planned, but it was a huge learning for that. The last 3.5 years, I've been working with, since I have a global role, I've been working with clients all across the globe. And working across industries, working across geos, right, getting to see the potential, right, the potential of applying AI to improve products, services, right, to all of society. And to me, that is really a great opportunity. And PwC and McKinsey have sort of done a study on this and sort of put out some numbers, right? And this is 13 to 15 trillion, depending on which study you take, of incremental GDP growth driven by AI, right? So this is a huge, huge opportunity for all of us to tap into this potential. Sorry. Now, I think everybody who's been at this session here today at the AI Summit, right? We know that AI is being used across a ton of critical processes, right? Whether it's hiring decisions, whether it's the rate on the loan you get for your business or the mortgage, et cetera. AI is pervasive, right? But it's sort of a weird thing I have in discussions with clients, right? For folks who really don't understand AI, and there are lots of people who are users of systems that have AI built into them, they seem to be very trusting. Hey, a machine told me this, it must be right? But there's also enough people now really challenging, saying, is that, because there are enough cases of problems as well, right, are truly questioning that, right? And that's why we are here in terms of discussing sort of how do we engender, let me just make sure I'm going the right, trust in the systems that we are building out. So we've talked about, this is a trustworthy AI track, right? We've talked about trust. I just wanted to sort of put up the definition just for us to collectively look at it, right? It's a belief that someone or something is reliable, good, honest, effective, right? How do you engender this trust in AI systems, right? So at IBM, right, we've been at it for 6 or 7 years now, right? So this is not something that we've just started. We've been looking at this for over 6 years now, and we've taken a truly multidisciplinary, multidimensional approach to trustworthy AI, right? And we've looked at it in sort of 3 areas. AI ethics, this is sort of, what are our principles? What are our values? What do we stand for, right? So we started there. Second is around trustworthy AI. How do you ensure that the systems that our teams are going to build, right, that IBM, the products and services that IBM is going to build, right, the services that my team in IBM Consulting is going to deliver for our clients is trustworthy, right? What are the tools, methods, best practices that we are going to build out to allow for that to be the case? And finally, and this is absolutely crucial, right? What's your AI governance, right? This is about systems and processes that go across the organization. Every IBMer, and we are now about, after a spin-off of Kyndryl, 300,000 people, right? It's a very large organization. So how do you ensure that you have the right governance to be able to do that? I'm sorry. So let me start with the principles, right? This was back in 2015 that we published trust and transparency principles, right? First one is around the purpose of AI is to augment human intelligence, right? This is about, ensuring that you and I are better at our jobs because of AI, and that the benefits of AI are available to everyone, not a select few, right? That's what we stand for. That's sort of our first principle. Second, extremely important, data and insights belong to the creator, right? Our clients' data is their data. Our clients' insights are their insights. We are not going to use them to build better products. And third is, it should be transparent and explainable. And obviously, there's been a lot of talk about that today, and I'll delve into that a bit more. So we started with these principles, and we says, OK, so what does it take for a large group of stakeholders to trust decisions made by a machine, right? And we started with these human-centered questions, right? Is it easy to understand? Do I understand the decision that is being made by the AI, right? That led to sort of, a trust principle for us around explainability, right? It's got to be core of what we do in an AI system. Is it fair? Again, intuitively, can you explain to somebody, right, here's why the decision was made, right? Here's the data we used. Here's how we modeled it, right? Here's the provenance of the data. Can it be hacked, right? Can the AI system be hacked so that it is, giving an advantage to a certain person or a group of people, right, and doing the opposite for the other, right? You cannot have trust in AI unless you can prove and assure users that, it is robust. Transparency, right? You want to be able to provide a fact sheet to people on this is what was used, right? Here's a model, here's the data, here's the provenance of that data, right? And finally, data privacy, right? I mean, I think there was a lot of discussion on the previous panel and, on this, right? What are the rights of users who provide data for use for something, right? But what are their rights, and and do we make it explicit to them as to when they can revoke and what we can use that data for? Now, earning trust, is not just a technology problem, right? So if you looked at those 5 pillars and our principles, we can't just say, all right, we made this technology, here's a set of tools that IBM Research made, use them, and everything will be trustworthy. It's not a technology problem alone, right? It's a socio-technology problem, right? What does that mean, right? You got to look at it holistically. And holistically, it starts with people and culture, right? It starts with, then it's processes, then it's tools, right? All 3 of these need to come together for, organization to be able to say that, they have the overall governance and the capabilities to generate trustworthy AI. So let me talk a little bit about culture and teams, because I just so strongly believe that it is so critical, for trustworthy AI to happen. Now, tech ethics is not something. I mean, it's a complex issue, right? It's not something that our CEO or the chief privacy officer or whoever says that this is what we should be doing, and that's it, right? It's a top-down directive, and everybody adheres to it. That's just not the case, right? It's a complex issue. Everyone has an opinion of what is fair, what is reasonable, right? And if I ask, everyone in this room the same question, right, I would get 10, 15, 20 different answers around this, right? And this is why it is so critical to allow for, to have systems and processes that allow for this multi-directional, cultural discussion to happen. And this is where sort of the diversity of the teams that are building AI systems is absolutely critical, right? And it's not just the diversity of the teams. It's also about, do you have a culture of inclusiveness, right? Do people feel comfortable raising questions, right? I know, almost everybody in this room probably has done diversity and inclusion training at some point, right? Either at work or otherwise. And to me, one of the key call-outs from those trainings that stands out to me is, the call to action of being a upstander, right? Don't be a bystander, be an upstander, right? Be an ally. And I think it's very much applicable here as well, right? You really do want people, right, in a diverse team to be able to raise questions, right, and challenge it. And that's why, again, this can't be just a directive saying this is what you got to do. It's got to be the culture that we are going to be open to being challenged, to debate, right, to arrive at the right answer. And this is why it's both diversity and inclusiveness that is needed and why it's so critical to drive trustworthy AI. Now, anytime you're working on building out an AI solution, right, you have an outcome in mind, right? You have what you were trying to do with that system. You have an intent of what you want to achieve with that AI solution. And design is the rendering of that intent. And to us, right, a lot about trustworthy AI begins not when you are writing your models or developing code. It starts at design, right? So we have spent a bunch of time, and we published these everyday ethics for artificial intelligence. This is our IBM design team putting out a set of guidelines, right, questions to ask as teams are going about building an AI solution. And if you look at sort of the 5 areas of ethical focus, right, I'll talk about a couple of those, right? Value alignment. What does that mean? The machine doesn't have values, right? It is representing values of the team that's building the solution, right? And so you need to be questioning, right, whose values are being portrayed by the system, right? Are you excluding somebody or a group, right? So these are the kinds of questions that we've laid out. Again, there's no checklist to this. You can't say, okay, here are the 15 things, check these off, you got a trustworthy or ethical AI. It's not, right? It is about ensuring that you're asking the right questions, right, and debating those. Similarly, user data rights, right? We talked about it. Right? How are we rendering them explicit, saying, here's what we're going to use your data for, right? And you have the right to be able to then say, that's it. You don't use it for anything else, right? So how do you ensure that you can actually design systems with these kind of capabilities? So what is this? Let me sort of make it a bit more real, right, rather than just think. So when our teams, right, whether we are building our own products, right, or my team is working with clients, right, we are using, we're doing design thinking sessions, and you have all of these kinds of tools. And again, these are nothing but stickies on a whiteboard or now in a mural because we're all remote, right? But the first thing is around looking at layers of effect, right? You have an intent, first order effect, very clear. This is what we want the system to be able to do. Second order effect, right? That's again intended and known. Then you got to question, what are the third order effects of this, right? And that may be, right, unintended and possibly unknown. But can we debate that? Can we talk about it, right? That's why this is so crucial. Similarly, looking at dichotomy mapping, right? I think this was talked about previously as well, right? What is beneficial? What's harmful? And then mapping that, right, through ethical hacking techniques to be able to get to, from the abstract pillars, right, to concrete rights, to actual mechanisms that we're going to implement in the solution. Right? So this is sort of the kind of day-to-day work that our teams get involved in doing. So let me make it a bit more concrete, right? And we're going to use a data set that is obviously biased. But let's assume for a minute that you are thinking of purchasing a passage on the Titanic. I can imagine why you don't want to do that, but play along, right? It's 1912. We have the capabilities of AI systems that we have today. And we've been asked to build a solution that is going to predict your probability of getting a lifeboat. All right? So that's what we're going to do here. You want to start with personas, right? Who are you building the system for, right? Clearly, the passenger, that's the main persona that we are working here for. End user of the application wants to know, well, I bought this ticket. What's my probability I'll get a lifeboat? You have the deck officer, right? This is a person who's responsible for putting people on the lifeboat. What is he going to use? He's going to use the list put out by the AI system. Great. You got the auditor. The auditor wants to make sure that the models that were used to build out the system, right, adhere to the rules and regulations, right? Checks and balances. Data scientists clearly interested in, what are we going to build out? What are the models, data, all of that stuff. And then you have the business owner, right? What is she interested in? She's interested in a balance between explainability and her trade secrets, right? And yes, there is a balance as long as it adheres to the prevailing legislations and regulations. So let's, so again, very concrete scenario, right? Again, you want to ask a whole bunch of questions here, right? You want to, are we make it transparent, right? When I purchase as a passenger, if I buy the ticket, does it tell me, right, that AI model was used, right? If I disagree with what I see, can I challenge it, right? How should we explain to somebody that here's the model, here's the score of the model, what does that mean, right? If there's an aggregate score of all the 5 trust pillars, right, and it's a number, 78, what does that mean, right? How do I understand that better? So, and then obviously all of that, there's also the compliance aspects to it as well. So let's look at sort of what this might actually look like. And if you're following along, right, I've not written a line of code here, right? I'm working through the design of the system, right, trying to really understand what would this mean. So here's a potential UI. I buy the ticket, assume that you have internet back in 1912, but here's, I buy the ticket, this is what I get, right? This is what I'm seeing. I see a seal of approval. It says AI was used, right? And it, it adhered to whatever standards, et cetera, right? And I'm notifying the passenger saying, hey, the AI model is going to be used to determine whether you're going to get, what your probability is of getting the thing. I'm also making explicit what the probability score is, right? Our passenger here bought a second class fare, right? And the probability is 35% of him getting onto a lifeboat. We have clearly said what the placement is, 728 in line, and what the aggregate score is, right? This is what I was referring to earlier. It's a holistic score, right? How do I understand what that means? So I want to explore, right? So, OK, great, 35%, that doesn't sound great. So I want to understand that better. So I click on Explore Others. Now I've got a lot more data saying, OK, here's all the stuff that went into it, right? Here's the significant contributing factor, which was class. You can see that, and what the other things were, right? Did you have other family members on, right? What was the gender, whatever. But clearly, the class of fare purchased dictates sort of the probability of where you get thing. Let's say you want to, now he wants to explore the class aspect more, right? He clicks on that, and here, we're making it explicit, saying you purchase a second-class fare, right? First-class fare members have preference over you, for this. Again, we're making it explicit. Yes, it's biased, but that's what it is, right? And here's the question of should the passenger be able to challenge this? And if yes, what would that mean? I'm not going to drill down this whole scenario. This was an actual exercise that our teams did to explore all the design points in terms of what it means to have explainability rendered explicit, right? You can do, and we did the same thing for all the different personas as well, but this is sort of what you look like. So that's design, right? So I talked about culture and people. I talked about design, right? And this methodology, right? So we have a very comprehensive methodology around scaling AI called the scale data science method, right? And let me explain what this is, right?
Manish, you're going to have to one more minute.
Okay, I'll wrap it up. So this is basically those loops that you see are garage loops. We work with the clients, to co-create, to come up with new business opportunities for them, right? Help them take them to MVPs, right? Test them out in the market and then scale them. And so this methodology is used across board, and it integrates design, ethics, data science, right, all into it, right? All of the stuff that I talked about before is integrated into this methodology. This is what we use to build our own products. This is what my team uses with clients as well. Tooling, we've done a bunch of work in this area, right? There are assessment tools from us, from other vendors, right? IBM Research has done a tremendous amount of research in this area, and last year we have put all of this up into open source, right? And then there's a whole bunch of products, right? And almost any new data science AI product will give you some capabilities around building this. Let me wrap it up on AI governance, right? 30 more seconds on this. This is absolutely critical, right? And we had our first AI ethics board back in 2015. It was research-led at that time. Since 2018, we have had an enterprise-wide research board. This board is comprised of a diverse set of individuals from all of the business units, all of the key functions within IBM. And they are responsible for everything that IBM does from an AI ethics perspective, our vision, our strategy, our policy perspective. Underneath the AI ethics board are focal points, right? Focal points from each function, each geography, right? They are directly connected to all of the employees in this. I'm one of the focal points for IBM Consulting. Any project anywhere in the world that requires ethics guidance, right, will bubble up to me, right? Me with my legal counsel will review that, right? If it requires to go through the ethics board, it goes to the ethics board, it gets debated there, right? A decision is rendered, right? This is a very robust process that we have in place. And finally, we have the advocacy network, right? This is a grassroots level, organic thing of, IBMers across the globe interested in this space, building out solutions, right? And it bubbling up through this governance mechanism, for use for everybody. So that's our journey, right? Almost everything that I've shared here today is available on IBM.com, right? Available for you to use and, modify as you see fit. And obviously, I and my team are available to help you all with it.